I know you're going to wonder why both episodes were uploaded this week, so I thought I'd just explain real quick. I'm going to explain later in the podcast, probably the beginning of it, but I'll explain real quick here right now. I had the episode 29 finished and ready to go, but I completely got distracted when I was down in London spending time with my fiance, so I completely forgot about uploading it, and then it completely slipped my mind because I'm a fucking idiot scatterbrain, so uh, I decided, fuck it, I'll just upload it when I upload this episode, so then you guys have more content to listen to. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the podcast, and I hope you guys have an awesome week. Peace out, guys.
You're listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast, hosted by Dylan Dillo Smith, Midwestern Ontario one and only MMA podcast, where we interview MMA fighters and voice actors like Sergeant Frank Woods.
What is up, everybody? It is Dillo, and welcome to another episode of the Dillo's Dojo podcast. Just before I begin here, I want to apologize for no podcast last week on the whole week of UFC 262. I was quite busy with work. I've got some good news before I get into UFC 262. It's a little bit personal, but I'm engaged. Yeah. So we're kind of hoping for maybe like a summer or early fall of 2022. But yeah, I'm engaged. I was down in London for about a week, spending time with her and her family, and yeah, so I was a little busy. I forgot to. I have the other episode 29 finished, and it was ready to go out, but I completely forgot to schedule it, and then it completely slipped my mind while I was down there. And then it slipped my mind while I was up here, and then I kind of thought about just doing the UFC 262 review this episode, and I was like, fuck it, I might as well just upload them both, have a little bit of a double whammy for everybody, and that way a little bit more content for whoever wants to listen, whoever wants new content to listen to on their day off, or if they're at work or whatever they do listening to this podcast. But yeah, I was a little busy and then kind of became scatterbrained and completely forgot about it, but I'm back now. And just before I begin, I want to say that podcasts might be a little bit more infrequent than they already are, because I'm trying to work a lot more and save up money, because her and I are moving into a place together down in London, so that's another personal thing that I got to deal with as well. But I'll try to get these out as much as I can. But anyway, you don't want to hear that bullshit. I'm sure you guys want me to just get into UFC 262 and just review it, because it was a great card. And I just gotta say, congrats to Charles Oliveira. I said on last episode, but you guys are probably not going to hear it unless you're listening to this episode after you've listened to that one. But I wanted Charles Oliveira to win, but I had this very nagging feeling that Michael Chandler was going to win, because he just sounded so confident. And the last time he sounded so confident, he knocked out Dan Hooker. I was very scared about that, but Charles Oliveira came through, and now we are in the Oliveira. Anyway, so we'll get into all of that later. We'll start off. I just want to talk about the prelims real quick and just how great they were. We had Jacare on the main card, or on the featured prelim, and he got his arm broken by Andre Muniz. Lando Venata and Mike Grundy fought to a very technical and fun fight. Jordan Wright knocked out Jamie Pickett real fast and very nicely. Andrea Lee submitted the Shevchenko sister, the lesser Shevchenko sister. And those were just some good things on the prelims. But let's get into this first fight on the main card. It was Shane Burgos going up against Edson Barboza in the featherweight division, and I predicted Edson Barboza to win by like first round or second round knockout or TKO. I was kind of right, but it was round 3, and it played out kind of similar to what I thought. It was more of a brawl and more of a fight than I thought it would be, but Shane Burgos fought into Edson's style and ate a lot of shots. And, I gotta say, like, kudos to Shane Burgos for having the heart he does and the chin he does, because he held up from a lot of heavy shots from Edson Barboza. But it was just a back and forth fight where Shane Burgos just kept coming. Edson was just hitting him with as much shots as he could. And just Shane Burgos, like the zombie he is, just kept walking forward. It was crazy. But unfortunately, in round 3, I want to say like close to a minute in, maybe a little past a minute in, Edson Barboza landed a series of punches that kind of backed up Shane Burgos. And then I don't know. Shane Burgos kind of was just, he seemed fine at first. He did like this weird little footwork thing and then started backing up. And as he was backing up, he stumbled back and fell. And it's not like he lost balance. He straight up just, it looked like he was hurt when he started to back up and he fell back. And then Edson finished him with some more punches on the ground. And it seemed like he was already kind of out when he hit the ground. It was really weird. It was like a delayed knockout. I don't know how to explain it, but it was fucking crazy. It was awesome. It was a great fight by both guys, and I'm kind of happy that it turned out the way it did. Not for Shane Burgos. I'm hoping he's okay. I believe he's okay as of recording this, but I'm kind of happy that I was right. That Shane Burgos was gonna play into Edson's style. It was kind of like a perfect stylistic matchup for Edson. I was right. So, that makes me feel good because, I'm usually not good with predictions. I'm usually not right with predictions. But anyway, we'll get into the next one. The next one was obviously the women's flyweight bout between Caitlin Chookagian and Viviane Araújo. First of all, before I get into this fight, Caitlin Chookagian, a little close to fight day, a couple days before fight day, maybe the day before fight day or something like that, she was exploding MMA Twitter because it turns out that I guess we don't know. Apparently, she hasn't had access to her account on Twitter for about 4 months, but we didn't know that. None of us knew that. So I guess one day, one cyber sleuth in the MMA Twitter community decided to go through her likes and noticed that there was a lot of porn in her likes. A lot of porn. Like, they counted, and it was somewhere around 84 to 86 likes all in a row. There, if you could scroll down and just keep scrolling for about 86 tweets of those likes, it was nothing but porn. And more specifically, BBC porn, like big black cock porn. It was very specific. Now, I got nothing wrong with that. She likes what she likes, but I just thought it was very specific. So she was exploding Twitter with that, and everybody was making jokes about how, she loves black dick now, and that's how she's cutting weight with all this, all the sex and stuff, and everybody was calling her husband a cuck and stuff. And like, we didn't find out that her account was hacked until later, but while this was all happening, her and her husband kind of played into the joke. They were sharing all the jokes on their Instagram stories, just kind of laughing at them. It was pretty funny. But anyway, that was kind of the calamity that led up to Caitlin Chookagian's fight with Viviane Araújo. Anyway, let's get into this fight. This wasn't really too much of a fight of note. Caitlin Chookagian fought a very smart fight, mostly with takedowns. She wrestled Viviane Araújo to the ground, did a very good job at controlling on the ground, and it turned out that the power of BBC porn apparently does wonders for your fight IQ and your weight cut, because she completely dominated Viviane Araújo. She looked very good, and kind of made a very big statement on Viviane Araújo and won by decision. It was a good fight altogether for Chookagian, a good comeback. I believe, if I remember correctly, she hasn't fought since, I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she has fought since then, but for some reason, I want to say she hasn't fought since Valentina Shevchenko finished her in like 2019 or whatever. Or what was it, 2020, early 2020? I don't remember. But anyway, that was that for that fight. And Chookagian came back and just dominated the whole fight, winning by decision. The next fight was a bantamweight fight between Matthew Schnell and Rogério Bontorin. And this was more of a different fight. Like, there was takedowns, but it was a lot of striking, and Rogério Bontorin looked very good in this fight. He looked very composed, very on point. Just like Matthew Schnell fought a very good fight, but just didn't seem to have an answer for what Bontorin kept, handing to him and everything. And Bontorin ended up winning by a decision. And kind of making a statement in the bantamweight division. I'm excited to see this guy fight a little bit more. It was a little surprising that he got the main card spot, and so did Matt Schnell, but you know, I wasn't disappointed. They delivered. It was a good fight. It was a good fucking fight. It was a good fight. I can't deny that. But I want to talk about the fight I really want to get into here, because this is the one that I had weird suspicions about, because this is the co-main event, the lightweight bout between Tony El Kukui Ferguson and Beneil Dariush. And I said on the last podcast when I was predicting it that it was just really weird that I had this weird feeling that Tony Ferguson might win by submission, but I had this weird feeling that Beneil Dariush was going to wrestle him the whole time and he was going to dominate Tony. For some weird reason, Tony seemed confident, but I just didn't think he improved his ground game. I just thought he would have been more deadly off his back. And I thought that Tony was going to win by submission, but it turns out I was wrong about that. And Beneil Dariush, after piecing up Tony for a little bit, started to go straight to his ground game. And I have to say, he did very well on the ground against Tony. Tony was very scrambly, but really had no answer for anything that Beneil was kind of offering him. I can't remember if it was round 1 or 2, but Beneil had him in a nasty heel hook or a knee bar that looked so brutal, and I'm so surprised that Tony didn't tap. It was very reminiscent kind of to when Charles Oliveira had him in that arm bar, and Charles just kind of stuffed the arm under his armpit and leaned back, and I don't know how Tony did not tap, because I would have felt the fucking ligaments in my arms stretching and tearing because of that, or something snapping in my elbow. That's fucking crazy. But once again, Tony just refused to tap, had Beneil in this heel hook knee bar situation that looked so bad for Tony, and yet Tony just toughed it out and got out of it. But that was the entire story of the fight, was Tony getting taken down by Beneil Dariush, not having any answer for what Beneil was offering on the ground, and just Beneil grinding out Tony while Tony just struggled to get back to his feet and struggled to even kind of get a lick of offense on the ground. It was kind of sad, and even when the decision was read out, because it was very much a 30-27, 30-26 probably read around for Beneil Dariush. And during the decision, you could even see how disappointed Tony was, just, screaming fuck at himself and just looking down. He looked so disappointed. It was really heartbreaking to see, especially since I kind of like Tony Ferguson. He is an asshole, but I like how fucking wacky he is, and his fights are always so entertaining. But, this was just really disappointing, and you could see the disappointment in Tony Ferguson's face, and that just... it begs the question to me that, is his best days behind him now? Because I believe he's 36 or something like that, and he's on a 3-fight skid now. He got finished by Justin Gaethje, completely dominated by now current lightweight champion Charles Oliveira, which we'll get into in a bit, and now got completely grounded out by Beneil Dariush. He's on a 3-fight skid after once being on what was considered the longest, or one of the longest fight or win streaks in the lightweight division in UFC history. So, yeah, it's just kind of disappointing to see this. I don't know what's next for Tony. I would like to see him fight someone a little bit more lower on the top 15, maybe an unranked guy to kind of get back in the win column. But, whatever's next for Tony is whatever's next for Tony. It was really disappointing to see that. But good showcase by Beneil Dariush. He made a big statement by completely dominating Tony, and I believe if I'm correct, Beneil is ranked 4 now in the rankings, ranked 4 or 3, something like that. He's in the top 5 now, and he's getting up there for a title shot. So good on Beneil Dariush. He's fucking fought his ass off, and after couple of finishes in a row, he just grinds out Tony Ferguson. A lot of people were mad that he was boring, but he deserves that. He fought a very smart fight, ground out Tony Ferguson. He fought a very smart fight against a dangerous fighter, so good on him. Congratulations to him. Let's get into the other lightweight fight, the lightweight championship, though, because this was crazy. And like I said, Michael Chandler had some wacky ass confidence coming into this fight. And it almost paid off for him in the first round, where he had Charles Oliveira hurt bad and on the ground and was just swarming him with hammer fists and punches to the point where I actually thought that Charles was done. I thought that Charles was going to be finished. The commentary team was freaking out because it was, I guess, Joe Rogan said that it was the most adversity he has faced in his 8-fight win streak at the time. And he's right. It was. He got completely dominated by Michael Chandler in the first. He was hurt. He looked like he was completely out of it. But the heart that Charlie Olives has just showed, and he held in there and defended just enough for the ref to let him keep going. And he got out of it. He got to his feet again, and the bell sounded. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what the fuck went through his head in the second round, but coming into the second round, he just came out throwing some goddamn heat, man. He just started throwing some fucking heat, dude. He came out, started throwing some fucking shots, caught Michael Chandler on the back foot, and stumbled Michael Chandler, like really hurt him, started backing him up against the cage and kind of chasing him against the cage, hit him with a couple more shots that dropped Michael Chandler, and then as Chandler was on the ground, finished him with more shots in just 19 seconds going into the second round. It was fucking crazy. It was like Charles Oliveira was pissed going into the second round. He's like, no, you just embarrassed me in that first round. I'm going to embarrass you. And he really did embarrass Michael Chandler. But it was a great fight for how short it really was. It was great. It was so action-packed, back and forth. It really looked like it was Chandler's fight in the first, and then all of a sudden in the second, Oliveira just comes out with the fucking hands of bricks and just scares the shit out of Chandler and finishes him. It was great. It was honestly just an incredible fight. Congratulations to Charles Oliveira. I'm so happy that this guy won the lightweight title, and I'll explain why. This man's story in the UFC is so crazy, man. He started out as a featherweight back in around 2009, I want to say. So he's been in the UFC for about 11 years, 28 fights. He had a mediocre career coming into it. He was this young 20-something-year-old prospect that had a lot of promise, and he had a very mediocre career. He would finish. He had crazy finishes, but would get finished. He had a great fight against Max Holloway early in his career, but unfortunately lost to Max Holloway in that fight. And just, in fact, he got finished probably around 8 times at featherweight. But that being said, he went to lightweight all of a sudden around in 2016, I want to say. And after suffering a loss to Paul Felder, which was pretty fucking brutal, I gotta say, he landed some elbows that sounded so nasty. After doing that, he went on this 8-fight win streak of just nothing but finishes and constantly technical fights. And it looked like a completely new and improved version of Charles Oliveira. So this man's on an 8-fight win streak now, and out of all unlikelihood gets awarded a fight against Tony Ferguson and just dominates Tony, embarrasses Tony, almost finishes Tony, but Tony didn't tap, obviously. That was the crazy-ass armbar. But he completely dominates Tony and just shows that he's levels ahead of everyone and earns a title shot against Michael Chandler, who I guess I could argue also earns the shot in his own way. He's been a long time Bellator champion. He finished Dan Hooker very fucking quickly. He was linearly because Dan Poirier, what the fuck? Dustin Poirier is going up against Conor McGregor, so they were the next best thing to go up against each other for the lightweight title. But just the way that Charles Oliveira finished the fight too really added to that story, because he's on this 8-fight win streak of nothing but finishes after having a mediocre career in the UFC. He's had a long storied career, and he almost gets finished in his title bout, but comes back after surviving the first and finishes Michael Chandler in 19 seconds. It was just incredible. It was a great fight. It was an incredible story for Charles Oliveira, and I'm extremely excited to see who his next title defense is going to be. I have a feeling that the winner of Poirier versus McGregor 3 is going to be the next title defense, so we'll see who wins that fight. But nonetheless, I'm excited to see how he does with this belt, because this is a new and improved Charles Oliveira, and I'm just so happy for him, honestly. Congratulations, Charlie. Oh my God, Charlie Olives is the man, and I'm so happy for him. But anyway, With that being said, all in all, UFC 262 was actually an incredible card. It had some great fights on the prelims. The early Fight Pass prelims were okay too, but the ESPN prelims were pretty goddamn great. Had some great fights, especially with the Lando Venata one, and they had some amazing fights in the Fight Pass prelims too that were back and forth. And then the main card had some pretty decent fights as well. Obviously, starting things off with Shane Burgos and Edson Barboza. That was incredible. It was a barn burner. But anyway, that was fucking incredible. That fight was amazing. And then Chukagian doing what she does was amazing. And then Rogério Bontorin doing what he does was awesome. But just the entire main card was very interesting, very action packed, well worth the fucking money if you paid for it. And honestly, I was just happy all in all with how the card went, especially with Charlie Olives winning. So anyway, that's it for the UFC 262. I want to say I went out of the 5 fights on the card, I went 4-1 with my predictions, I believe, kinda, because I predicted that Edson Barboza was gonna win by knockout, and I predicted that Chukagian was gonna win by decision. I predicted that Bontorin was gonna win by decision or submission. And the only one I got wrong, because I was kind of sure of it, was Tony Ferguson submitting Beneil Dariush. But it was vice versa. Beneil Dariush almost submitted Tony. And then, obviously, I got Charles Oliveira winning by knockout right. Even though it was way earlier than I expected. I was expecting a 4th round, 5th round TKO. I was expecting more of a fight, but Charlie Olives was pissed going into that 2nd round. And honestly, good on him for winning the title bout. So, honestly, I think I went 4-1 with my predictions. That's not too bad. Usually I'm pretty fucking garbage with these. But anyway, I might start doing this a little bit more. I might start a little tiny show the fucking night before, the day before the actual event, and give my predictions. But anyway, that's it for UFC 262. Next up in the second half, we are going to cover this week's fight because we had Cody Garbrandt going up against Rob Font in the main event, and we had a pretty decent main card. Not on paper, like it didn't look good on paper, but it ended up being pretty decent all in all, and just some pretty okay fights altogether. So we'll get into those in a bit. But anyway, that was it for UFC 262. What I actually want to do, though, is I want to talk about UFC 263 real quickly because it's got a pretty decent main card. We'll talk about that real fast before I get into the second half. Because obviously UFC 263 is Adesanya versus Vettori 2. That's a great fight because their last fight was very close. Very struggling for Adesanya and Vettori, and it ended up being a split decision going Adesanya's way. But not just because of that fight, but we also have the rematch between Figgy and Moreno, man. That was the fight in December that was just a complete barn burner, man. Was considered, obviously, I believe, Wei Li and Joanna won Fight of the Year, but that was a very close contender to second because it was constantly back and forth. Both guys were just swinging the whole time. It was fast-paced. It was so explosive. And it ended up being a draw the first time around. So this rematch has to happen. Someone has to win between these two. But if you thought that was it for the 5-round fights, we have Leon Edwards going against Nate Diaz. And they're not even the co-main event. Like, yes, they were supposed to be the co-main event non-title fight. That was 5 rounds, but they're not even the co-main event anymore, and they're still 5 rounds. So we're getting a 5-round fight between Leon Edwards and Nate Diaz. That's going to be incredible. Bilal Muhammad stepping back into the cage after losing via eye poke, or no contest via eye poke against Leon Edwards. He's going up against Damian Maia. That's going to be a great test for him and probably one of the greatest grapplers in the UFC. And then to open up the card, we have the Irish Dragon or whatever his name is, the Scottish Dragon or whatever, Paul Craig and Jamal Hill going up against each other in light heavyweight. So it's going to be a great card. I'm excited for that. But the fight that I'm probably excited for the most is Figgy versus Moreno, man. You know I love me some flyweights. They're always so fun when they're always striking because it's fast-paced, always back and forth. I love watching fast-paced fights. It's like watching Dragon Ball Z in real life. It's fucking cool. So I'm excited for this fight. Plus, their first fight was just absolutely incredible. In my opinion, I thought it was Fight of the Year. But, Joanna versus Wei Li was pretty fucking great too. So I can't argue that that was Fight of the Year as well. But yeah, I'm excited for that fight more specifically than the main event or even the Leon Edwards fight. I cannot wait for that flyweight title fight. It's going to be incredible. I don't know who I'm going to vote for. I'm going to have to fucking think about it a bit more. But honestly, I just want to see an incredible fight like they had the first time. I'm excited for that. But anyway, let's get into these other fights now. We'll get into them in a tiny bit. Alrighty, let's get into these fights, man. This was actually a pretty decent card. It didn't look like a good card on paper, but the fights themselves actually ended up being pretty decent. The preliminary card had some pretty decent fights as well. Bruno Silva winning by another knockout. That was pretty awesome. David Dvorak winning by a pretty quick submission 2 minutes into the first round. That was pretty sweet. Damir Ismagulov just doing what he does best and smashing Rafael Alves. Just a very close fight between Court McGee and Claudio Silva, and then Ben Rothwell just completely tiring out Chris Barnett and winning by submission. But the main card also had some pretty good fights too, with the first fight on the card being a very big test, not just for one guy, but I guess for both guys, if you want to be technical here. It was a very big test for not only Jack Hermansson, because he's facing an incredible striker in Edmund Shabazian, but also a big test in Edmund Shabazian because he's against Jack Hermansson, who's actually got a lot of submissions on his record, also has knockouts, and is very experienced, and he's still such a young guy. He's my age. Like, Edmund's 23 going on 24, I believe. He's my age. And he's going up against a guy in Jack Hermansson who's 22-6. So this fight was actually pretty goddamn good. The first round looked incredible for Edmund Shabazian. He looked very great for Edmund Shabazian. His striking looked on point, quick, very precise, kept Hermansson on the back foot, hit Hermansson with some hard shots a couple times, and he just looked very calm and composed. It was like he wasn't actually like being too aggressive, overly aggressive where he'd gas out. He was very calm and composed, picking his shots, picking his combos, very precise with his shots. His striking looked on point. His movement looked on point. He looked very fresh. And, I was sitting there watching and I was like, damn, actually, Shabazian looks pretty goddamn good. Like, he's looking pretty fucking good here. But unfortunately, that didn't last long. The first round was very strong for Edmund Shabazian, but that didn't last long as Jack Hermansson started to get his rhythm in the second round. Edmund Shabazian started to get a tiny bit tired, and Hermansson started taking him to the ground. And Shabazian did pretty goddamn well on the ground, scrambling and trying to get back up to his feet and just kind of trying to transition. But Jack Hermansson, he has that great ground game. He was very smothering and just kept Edmund on the ground and tired Edmund out some more. And I believe it was the second round. Near the end of the second round, he had Edmund on the ground, eating some heavy shots, and I thought he was going to finish Edmund, but it went to the bell. And then it went into the third round, where Edmund was looking pretty tired. Jack was looking pretty tired, but he looked a bit more fresh than Edmund Shabazian did. And then it just ended up being the same shit again. They were striking on the feet for a bit before Jack Hermansson clinched against the cage, took him down. And then it was just nothing but ground game from there on out, just threatening with submissions and just hitting like heavy strikes. And the fight ended up being a 29-27 decision for Jack Hermansson on all scorecards. It was a very close fight in the first, but Edmund Shabazian needs to work on his cardio. His wrestling's pretty good. Like he seemed to be a good challenge for Jack Hermansson on the ground, but I don't know, man. That kid's cardio, he just tires out very easily. He might have the best cardio, just doesn't know how to conserve it, right? I don't know. But Edmund Shabazian ended up getting dominated near the end of the second round and then all through the third round and ended up losing 29-27, so that was unfortunate for him. Good on Jack Hermansson to kind of keep his spot in the top 10 and kind of make a statement beating such a young guy very soundly after kind of trying to get his rhythm in the first. But that wasn't the only fight that went to decision on the card and was a grapple fest. We had Ricardo Ramos versus Bill Algio, and again, it wasn't a boring grappling fest because Bill Algio threatened him, was brawling, hitting him with some shots. Ricardo Ramos just stayed calm and collective, was keeping his shots very precise, landing takedowns whenever he had the open shot, was dominating on the ground, and then ended up beating Bill Algio via, I believe, 30-27 decisions. So, the that was a good fight for Ricardo Ramos. And Bill Algio just showing his heart because he got hit by some heavy shots and he just kept coming. And there was no point that he was out of that fight. He just kept trying and trying and trying. But if you want surprising, then we'll get to the women's featherweight bout. First of all, I believe this was the last ever women's featherweight bout in the UFC. I don't know if it's true or not. I've been hearing sources say that it's not true, that Dana's not closing down the division. Then I'm hearing that Dana is closing down the division because there's not enough people. Like, there's no rankings. There's not enough roster space. Or, like, there's not enough people in the roster on featherweight for, like, a challenge. So there's no point in keeping the division up, that type of shit. So this was the final bout for women's featherweight. And I actually thought that Felicia Spencer was going to win. But Norma Dumont fought a very smart fight and picked her shots very carefully, outstruck Felicia Spencer, and then out-grappled Felicia Spencer. Felicia Spencer, I believe, is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and got out-grappled by Norma Dumont on the ground, just completely controlled from top. All 3 rounds. I was so surprised. Norma Dumont had a very good showcase. Very strong. Actually, like, dominated Felicia Spencer. But, unfortunately, Felicia Spencer couldn't even get back from that. Like, I wanted Felicia Spencer to win, obviously, because she's a Canadian. And I really thought that Felicia Spencer was going to win. But Norma Dumont, against all odds, dominated every fucking round and won via decision. So, good on Norma Dumont. I don't know what's going to happen with the women's featherweight division, but if something is going to happen there, I can see Norma Dumont putting herself into a title picture soon because of that. Whether she actually has a chance against Nunes is a different question. I'm not going to talk about that because I don't want to be mean, but let's get into the next fight, which is the heavyweight fights. Justin Tafa versus Jared Vanderaa. This was actually a fun fight. Usually, heavyweight fights aren't fun. And I feel sad for saying that because they are sometimes, because there's knockouts that are threatened. But then sometimes heavyweight fights just are not fun. They just aren't. They start fun and then they get very slow because nobody gets finished. And it's nothing but just 2 fatty sweat fucking guys just huffing and puffing, throwing very heavy fucking like sloppy strikes, that type of shit, and it just isn't fun to watch after that. But this fight was actually very enjoyable from start to finish. Justin Tafa came out very aggressive, but Jared Vanderaa kept his cool, picked his shots very carefully, actually landed pretty much every shot and was landing some pretty quick shots for a heavyweight. Kept it quick and guessing with the boxing, the long fucking range distance, like kicking too. He kept hitting him with body kicks, head kicks, threatening with just nothing but kicks, keeping him at distance. And honestly, Tafa was not out of the fight. And I'm going to say this now before I continue on with the fight. Vanderaa pretty much dominated every aspect of the fight. But Tafa was not out of the fight at all. He kept it going, kept Vanderaa on his feet, but got outstruck every single round by Vanderaa. And obviously, the octagon control was very close between the two because they were just back and forth with the control of the octagon. But Vanderaa outstruck Tafa, and even though Tafa opened up a nasty cut on Vandeera's forehead, he just couldn't get his boxing going. I think it was more so like he was getting his boxing going in the first round, but then I think he started looking for that one shot. I think he started looking for that specific shot. He started trying to go for the one shot. Unless Vanderaa got close, he would kind of do like an elbow and then like a quick hook or something to hurt Vanderaa. But yeah, it was just mostly Tafa looking for that one shot. He was looking to knock Jared Vanderaa out. And Vanderaa just used that to his advantage to stay at distance, constantly threaten with kicks, use his boxing, and just constantly land shots. And he outstruck Justin Tafa in rounds 1, 2, and 3, despite having a nasty gash on his forehead. It didn't even look bad, it was just deep, and the head just kept pumping the blood, so he just kept bleeding. But he displayed a very excellent case of striking. Like, he was quick and constantly on point with his punches throughout the entire fight, despite being a heavyweight. He looked pretty good. Even in the third round, his kicks looked pretty quick and heavy. His punches looked precise and calm, even though they were getting a little bit more sloppy, because he was tired. But he looked very good, and I was really surprised with how he fought. And he just completely dominated Justin Tafa from start to finish. And if you think that wasn't bloody enough, because the entire octagon was like spattered with blood, little droplets of blood all over the canvas. If you didn't think that was bad enough, the co-main event, the women's strawweight bout between Yan Xiaonan and Carla Esparza, the former women's strawweight champion. Holy shit. So there was a lot of hype coming in on Yan Xiaonan in this fight. She was on, I believe, a 6-fight win streak in the UFC. She was 6-0 in the UFC. She was beating some top girls and beating them very quickly and soundly. So she was going up against Carla Esparza, and Carla Esparza was on a win streak as well. She's looking very good in her last couple fights as well. So this was more of a pick'em fight, but there was a lot of hype coming into this against Yan Xiaonan. But holy shit! Carla Esparza looked so good in this fight. She was very much on point with her striking, and then immediately threatened with the takedowns, and on the ground just was a complete threat to Yan Xiaonan. Yan Xiaonan could not get up. It was like Yan Xiaonan did not know what the fuck to do on the ground. She was constantly throwing up body triangles, trying to throw up actual like triangle chokes, wasn't pushing at the hips or anything, wasn't really trying to create space, and allowed, and then whenever she did create space, she allowed Carla to transition to a different position. So throughout the first round, it was just nothing of except Carla on mount, constantly hitting strikes and then going to side control and hitting strikes there and just controlling the fight from the ground. And then near the end of the round, she started hitting her with some elbows that opened up a nice little divot in Yan Xiaonan's forehead that started bleeding bad, and it looked like the fight was going to be stopped there. But that wasn't it. It went to the second round, and once again, Carla Esparza took Yan Xiaonan to the ground after Yan Xiaonan came out a little bit more aggressive this time, and without any resistance, took Yan Xiaonan to the ground. And after a little bit of grappling with Yan Xiaonan and throwing a couple strikes from full guard and mount and stuff, she got to a crucifix position and started controlling the arms while landing some vicious punches down on Yan Xiaonan, and just started, I don't know, just started landing elbows and punches that opened up the divot again and started making her face bleed. And there was nothing that Yan Xiaonan could do. She was just constantly fucking, moving back and forth, constantly twisting and churning, and just could not defend. Her hands were pinned. Her hands could almost get to her face, but not enough to defend the punches. Her other arm was only enough to just get to her face, but was being controlled by Carla Esparza, and then eventually got behind Carla Esparza's head, where that allowed Carla Esparza just land some more punches and elbows. And eventually, after so many shots, I felt it was a little bit too many, Keith Peterson stepped in and waved off the fight, and Carla Esparza beat Yan Xiaonan via a vicious TKO on the ground. Holy shit, it was brutal. Very reminiscent to when Valentina Shevchenko beat Priscilla Cachoeira, or whatever her name is. It was very brutal. It was just very bloody, very brutal. Carla Esparza was very clear on what she wanted, what her intentions were. As soon as she got close to the finish in the first round, she very much knew what her game plan was. Her opponent was weak on the ground. Her ground control was nothing for her opponent. Her opponent had nothing for her. Her ground strikes were too vicious for her opponent to handle. She had a clear game plan, and she stuck to it brutally. And then that leads us to the main event. The absolute barn burner that was expected of Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt. I'm not going to lie. I haven't really much been vocalizing it on Twitter or even here on the podcast, but I was actually really excited for this main event because both guys, they wrestle, but they're boxers through and through. They love their boxing. They love their hands. They fell in love with their fucking strikes, their punches, and that's what I expected from this fight. And that's what we got. And I was so excited for this fight when it was starting. So, holy shit, I did not expect the fight to go exactly the way it did. It was kind of shades of like Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar, except not as much volume. But Rob Font did an incredible job at keeping Cody at bay and hitting with some heavy jabs and some strikes. Cody Garbrandt took him down a couple times, but really couldn't do much when he was on the ground with Rob Font. Rob Font just got right back up and just kept Cody at distance and started outboxing Cody, just hitting some very heavy shots, very heavy combos that Cody was eating. And I gotta say, after how Cody's been struggling in his last couple of fights, obviously his last fight was a knockout against Sun Sao, so good on him for that. But the fights before that, nothing but 3 knockouts. Everybody was calling him Cody No Chin Garbrandt, and I just got to say this. And there's been a lot of people I've seen on Twitter with the same sentiment as me. I don't want to see any of you people call him Cody No Chin anymore, because that man ate every shot that Rob Font just threw at him. And Rob Font threw some heavy shots and a lot of combos that landed square on Cody's jaw. And Cody just kept coming forward. Even though he couldn't get his boxing going as much as Rob Font could, he just kept coming forward and he just kept fighting. There was some people last night arguing that Cody's corner could have very well thrown in the towel during the fight, but just didn't, because Cody just had heart and just kept coming. But Rob Font, it was his night through and through. He was outstriking Cody in every aspect of the fight. Cody had his takedowns, but like I said, there weren't many of them, and he couldn't really do much with them. And Rob Font just kind of got back up after immediately, and then went right back to what he was doing, just completely dominating the fight on the feet. He outboxed the guy that I didn't expect he was going to outbox. Cody Garbrandt hit Rob Font with some good shots too, and that was the thing. I think that's what kind of panicked Cody a bit, was that, you know, his knockout power wasn't affecting Rob Font. Rob Font just kept coming and was answering back with more of his shots. You know, Cody would hit 1 or 2 shots that were heavy and that would hurt any other guy, but it's Rob Font. And Rob Font would come back with a combo or shots of his own that were just like, whoa, Cody's sitting there like, what the fuck? Like, what the hell? This guy's just coming forward still. So Rob Font just completely dominated every aspect of the fight except for the ground, and there wasn't really much to do on the ground. So he just outpointed Cody, outstruck him, and it was pretty brutal. It was a great showcase by Rob Font. Very depressing for Cody Garbrandt, but I gotta say, Cody Garbrandt released a very classy statement regarding the loss. He's not mad, and I gotta say, you know, he wasn't fighting emotionally too. He was calm, he was collective. He didn't get emotional whenever he got hit with a heavy punch or anything. Whenever his punches didn't work, he didn't get too emotional or gun shy. He kept coming. But Rob Font was just the better boxer that night, and Cody just got hit with some pretty good shots. Like, he just faced a better boxer. There's a reason why Rob Font is number 3. There's a reason why the man knocked out Marlon Moraes. There's a reason why the man finished, I believe, Renan Barao. This guy has power. He's a great boxer. Even though he's got wrestling, he is a great boxer, despite having submissions on his record. So I'm excited to see where this is going to go now. I've already seen Aljamain say some stupid shit. I'm not going to get into that. I saw Yan. I woke up this morning and Peter Yan said that he wants... Obviously, he's going for the Aljamain fight. He wants that back, but he said once that's done, he'll fight Rob Font. And, you know, I think Rob Font deserves a title shot after that. That was a great showcase. He completely dominated Garbrandt, who was coming off of a nasty knockout against a Sun Sao. So he was so motivated. He was like, yeah, I got this awesome knockout. And he was extremely motivated coming into it. Yet Rob Font was just the better fighter because he was coming absolutely motivated into that. Number 3, going against a former champion in a main event spot. He wanted to showcase his skills, and that's exactly what he did. And I'm starting to realize this is just me absolutely gushing over Rob Font. But after the display he showed last night, it's hard not to, man. He did a great job. You know, I'd love to have him on here and talk to him. But yeah, no, he just did a great job in the main event. He fucking outstruck Cody, and I just can't believe how well he did it and how well he took Cody's punches. And honestly, like I said, I gotta say, Cody's got a fucking chin on him, and calm Cody kind of did pretty damn well, even though he got outstruck. He didn't get emotional, and he didn't allow himself to get finished, so good on him. But anyway, that's it for the Font versus Garbrandt card. there's going to be no UFC next week. So I won't be doing a podcast next week. But the week after that, on June 5th, I believe it is a fight night between Jairzinho Rosenstruck and Augusto Sakai. That also has Walt Harris versus Marcin Tybura in the co-main event. And then Roman Dolidze versus Laureano Staropoli. And then Ponzinibbio versus Miguel Beza. Tom Breeze versus Antonio Arroyo. Some pretty okay fights on there. That main event, though, is going to be awesome between Augusto Sakai and Jairzinho Rosenstruck. Both guys who have just absolute knockout power, but are very intelligent. I'm excited to see that fight, honestly. And then, obviously, after that, the next week, we've got UFC 263. And, yeah, that's about it. One more thing before I go. Good news on the Diego Sanchez front. Diego Sanchez got rid of that crazy motherfucker, Joshua Fabia. He actually fired the fucking dude. The absolute madman actually did it. He actually got rid of the fucking the absolutely most non-self-aware self-awareness coach I have ever heard of. So good on him. I'm excited to see where this leads Diego. Maybe retirement or maybe whole new path in the future. I don't know, but good on Diego for letting that fucking crazy douchebag go. And I can't wait to see new beginnings for Diego or maybe a new life for him, honestly. So, yeah, that's fucking great. Anyway, one more thing before I go. Valerie Lareda suffered her first loss at Bellator 259. And I just want to say I'm pretty happy that she did, for the reason that it's not that I hate her. I hate that she's so much of an Instagram model that it's clear that she doesn't focus too much on training. And I feel like this is an eye-opener for her to focus less on being an Instagram model and more so on her training, because she's got knockout power and she's got heart. She kept coming in that entire fight despite being dominated by Hannah Guy. She just doesn't have good fight IQ, and her ground game, as her coaches said, was absolutely atrocious. But she's got decent striking, she's got knockout power, she's got good fundamentals. She needs to focus on her training more, she needs to work on her ground game, and she needs to work on her fight IQ, because she was throwing spinning shit when she shouldn't have been throwing spinning shit. And then when her coaches told her to stop throwing spinning shit, what did she do? Threw spinning shit. So she needs a little bit of an adjustment on, how she listens to her coaches, her fight IQ, and just how serious she takes her training. But other than that, it's a good thing for her because it's a good experience, and good on Hannah Guy for getting another win in her career, because now she's 3-1. But this is a good experience for Valerie Lareda, honestly. But I see a lot of people actually hating on her because she was very focused on, everybody calling her just an Instagram model. And there's a lot of dudes that are being pretty misogynistic about it. But my take on it is this is showing that she is just an Instagram model and she needs to focus more on her training. And, if she does and this opens her eyes, we could probably expect a new and improved Valerie Lareda. She's young. She shows she's got heart. She's got knockout power. She's only 22 years old. So, I can't hate on her too much. I can only hate on how fucking cocky she is. Gives me Macy Barber vibes. That's why. But, she's 22. She suffered her first loss. And, she clearly has holes in her game she needs to work on. So, like I said, maybe she'll work less on being a fucking OnlyFans model and IG model, and maybe more on her training. And this could be a chance to see a new and improved Valerie Lareda. Because look at Aaron Pico when he lost. We all of a sudden saw a new and improved Aaron Pico coming back after his pro MMA debut loss. And after his last few knockout losses, he just kept improving. He kept changing things about his games. So maybe we'll see that with Valerie Lareda. But anyway, this is a little bit of a shorter podcast, I know. But I wanted to kind of breeze through this because there wasn't really much to talk about. Not too much news other than obviously Valerie Lareda losing and the whole Joshua Fabia thing, and the whole Dylan's getting engaged thing. That's pretty exciting, and I'll talk about that for a little bit. But that's pretty much it for the podcast. But yeah, I'm engaged. We're aiming for a summer 2022 wedding. We're moving in together hopefully next month. We've signed the application forms. We've handed them in with the deposit. Hopefully we get approved. If not, we'll get our deposit back. But from what it sounds like, we might be getting approved for this place. So things are looking up. Your boy's moving to a place with better internet too. So maybe streams, maybe. But definitely going to be better beginnings for me. More podcasts once I'm moved in there and settled. Just, a lot of things coming into my personal life. But anyway, that's it for the podcast. I hope you guys had an incredible week. I hope you guys had an incredible week before that. And I hope you guys have an incredible week coming up. I hope you guys have a great long weekend. To my fucking fellow Commonwealthers in the UK and Canada, we have Victoria Day. I don't know if America has a May 2-4 weekend, but here in Canada and the UK, we have Victoria Day. So, happy Victoria Day to our Commonwealth lads. And that's it for the podcast. I will see you guys in the next episode. Have a great week. I love you all. And I will see you guys Friday before UFC 263. Jesus Christ, I almost had a stroke there. Anyway, I will see you guys later. Peace out, guys.
You've been listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast. Keep in touch with Dillo on his social media at Dillo Ross on Twitter and Dillo Ross on Instagram.